The extended mind thesis claims that the mind does not exclusively reside in the brain or even the body, but extends into the outer world. The extended mind thesis proposes that some objects in the external environment can be a part of a cognitive process, and in that way function as extensions of our mind itself. In some sense, the human organism is linked sometimes with an external entity in a two-way interaction, creating a coupled system that can be seen as a cognitive system per se. All the components in this system play an active role, and they together behave in the same kind of way that cognition usually does. If we remove the external components in the system's function would fail, just as it would if we deleted part of the brain. Extended mind thesis is applied in several science areas, such as memory, perception, language, gestures, theater-related robotics, musical appreciation, social cognition, but we will focus specifically on language and perception applications in today's presentation.
Following from the introduction, a question can appear. If the mind is extended in the sense of extended mind thesis, what is the role that perceptual experiences play? They seem to be purely internal, and therefore it's a real challenge to the extended mind thesis to prove the opposite. Thinking of extended mind thesis, it can be applied to a vast number of perception areas. Imagine people with hearing or vision disabilities who use devices to restore failed functions of their internal organs. Obviously, it's not just about replacing failed senses. It can also be leveling up the existing senses beyond human abilities. But, as was said earlier, it's hard to think of perceptual experience with respect to the extended mind thesis per se. Despite the fact, we will try to defend the externalist point of view in this presentation. Now, speaking about language, it is relatively easier to explain it in terms of extended mind thesis. As an example, language is considered from the perspective of active vehicle externalism. In this perspective, language is regarded as an external, culturally evolved tool that interacts with our biological cognitive system actively, supporting the cognitive processes. In most cases, language is taken in the context of regulation of social relations or coordination of complex actions and problem-solving activities, which makes it an intrinsically external tool. However, there are internalist opinions such as language is internal and it's only in our minds.
Mind is purely an internal matter, and consequently the notion of extended perceptual content sounds abrupt and bizarre. Perception is firmly considered as internal. Perceptual experiences arise internally, and perceptual content is purely an internal matter. Furthermore, even the way in which perception contributes to action is also determined inside the skin boundary. Accordingly, it seems to be quite an abrupt idea to see perceptual content as in fact extended. Speaking about language, it also must be considered as an internal tool, since we are able to think and speak in some language without using any external sources and materials. All translations, constructing sentences, setting the future intonation take place in our head, and this cannot be an external.
Let us use the notion of active perception. Point of active perception is as follows. Perception provides partial information, depending on what the perceptual agent is paying attention to. Visual processes must be processed in real time. For example, for a rat to question whether the moving shadow shows a prey or a predator. Hence, visual processes provide only the information needed for the agent to respond to its current concern. The generation of this fine-grained visual content is a result of three interacting components: agent's goal, attention, and environmental conditions. Claims shown above summarize that the mind in the making of perceptual experience is indeed extended. Language can be interpreted as an external tool in terms of extended mind thesis. We use it not only in interaction with other individuals, for instance, in context of regulation of social relations, but also apply it to some external needs, such as dictionary, where we can find different definitions of the words, translators, where we can translate the text to any language, textbooks, where we can find information such as how to build grammatically correct sentences, such that other people understand us. So it's definitely external in some kind of sense.
Concluding all that was said above, the language as well as perception can be interpreted in terms of extended mind thesis. We can analyze and think inside our head in one language or another, just as our brain processes information received from our sources of feelings inside our head. At the same time, using our language, we can regularize social relations. Also, we can use some sort of implants to perceive our world and extend our mind. With use of Thesis, our mind can reach beyond the traditionally conceived boundaries of individual organisms.